Okay, for my class, a reaction paper is not due for this. Take notes, and the notes are important to make sure your memory is refreshed on them. Since Carl opened the matter of my survey, and I had no idea that you had been part of that you were in office when that occurred. I just sort of lost track of what year we handed this out. I got the proofs 2 days ago. And, the article is called Officials' Estimates of the Incidence of Actual Innocence Convictions. It's a bit of a mouthful. And it's an important question. How big of a problem is this? Justice Scalia in Hudson, Marsh versus Hudson, or Hudson versus Marsh, quoted a prominent district attorney from Oregon by the name of Marquis, Joshua Marquis, and says in U.S. reports that felony convictions are accurate to 99, something like 0.97%. And if it's in the U.S. reports, it must be scientifically accurate, right? Because you got to trust the U.S. Supreme Court. That was a misuse of statistics, and I could direct you to articles that carefully analyze how they came about. It's an important issue. Whether or not there's a tiny percentage of cases that go wrong because of human error, or whether or not systematic errors in the justice system produce a sizable number of miscarriages of justice. Now, it's very hard to figure this out, because an acquittal does not mean that you're factually innocent. And we have to, that makes a lot of good sense, because this proof beyond reasonable doubt is a very high standard to make, and many juries will do the right thing, and they'll say, well, we really think he did it, but we don't think the prosecutor proved it beyond reasonable doubt. Very hard job being a juror. No official record is kept, and it's very hard to get to what we call the ground truth of the case. Well, Jim Newhart left, but talking about that, the whole way before, I mean, how do you get them? And in the Mulderline case, we're absolutely 100% sure, and without something like a DNA exoneration, it's hard to say 100.0%. So how do you try to figure out how many wrongful convictions there are every year? Well, there are basically two ways to do it. One way is to count, and the other way is to estimate. And this article is an attempt to estimate. Now, one of the things that Brad Smith, Professor Smith in the Criminal Justice Department, Dan Chicago graduate student, and I have tried to do here is to collect all of the studies that we can get our hands on and try to do this. You've all read Gross's article. Gross says that between 1989 and 2003, there were 340 exonerations in the U.S. But an exoneration is when the governor or a court says, we believe that factually this person was innocent, and we make an official record of it. That doesn't count all the wrongful convictions, where a person is tried a second time and released, and all of the facts tend to point to innocence, factual innocence. And yet, a prosecutor will say, well, I still think the jury was right the first time and wrong the second time. Even in DNA cases, they simply will not give it up. And you cannot call them as an exoneration unless the court really joins it. So, we go through a series of exercises where we review other studies, and especially in death penalty cases, we actually know the number, the denominator. And a lot of these careful studies, including a very recent one that was published just a month ago, come up with estimates of 1 to 3%. The 3.5% that was published a month ago in the Journal of Criminal Criminology looked at every case on the Innocence Project list of a rape murder with a DNA with DNA proving that the person wasn't there. To be doubly careful, this author bent over backwards and said sometimes a DNA exoneration may be wrong. So they actually reduced the numerator by 1/2%. Then they went to the Census Bureau's list of death penalty cases. It's a fairly complicated methodology. This author comes up with an estimate published in the Journal of Criminal Law Criminology, very prestigious journal, of 3.5%, but only for those more serious rape murder cases. So we have those estimates. The method that we used was pioneered in the 1980s by Ron Huff and colleagues, and they asked all or a very large sample of judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and police in Ohio what their estimates were, and they came up with about 1/2%. There were some problems with that survey, so a replication was done. It was a doctoral dissertation research. It was done by a professor, a doctoral student who's now a professor in Ohio just 3 years ago. And I was in the room at an academic conference when the man who did this presented it, and I said, that's really interesting. I'd like to compare it to Michigan. So we replicated this research. So the little booklet that you got and that Newhart got was a replication of the Ohio study. And what we came up with, I'll say this, I'll make it fairly short, was we came up with several results, so it's kind of hard to summarize. We found that when we sent a survey to every circuit and appellate judge in Michigan. We sent the survey to every elected prosecutor. We sent the survey to all of the lawyers in SADO and on the CDAM list. So the CDAM is the Criminal Defense Attorneys of Michigan, a prestigious organization of defense lawyers who are in it full-time, and to a sample of police chiefs and every sheriff. Now, before I tell you what our results were, it may be interesting, and here's why my ears picked up when Mr. Marlinga said that my name is not in good odor among the prosecutors, but sometimes, you know, you're known by your enemies and you might be proud. I don't say that. Okay. Social scientists go nuts over their response rate. The lawyers could care less, but let me tell you, it's really important in social sciences. And a journal, and this is going to be published in Justice Quarterly, one of the top 5 criminal justice journals in the country. Peer-reviewed by anonymous peer reviewers, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. The overall response rate in Ohio was 53.2%. Our overall response rate was 54.7%, so it did better. Now it varied. So for example, we got 63, almost a third of the police in Ohio, 56%. Defense attorneys, we got a 62% response rate. The defense attorneys in Ohio, 48%. Well, maybe our defense lawyers were more interested because they were SADO and CDAM lawyers. Judges, 61% in Ohio, 47% here. And here's where it gets interesting. Prosecutors, 46% in Ohio. We got 27%. Let me tell you about the prosecutors. Because we had a very meticulous graduate student, she tracked all of our responses as they came in and kept a daily total. And there was like D1, day one of the responses coming in. And they started coming in at an even rate from all of our response groups, including prosecutors. Then suddenly on day 12, nothing came in after that from the prosecutors. It stopped going. Just